All right, good evening. Welcome to the Wednesday, February 24th, 2021 North Andover Conservation Commission meeting. Just a brief announcement as to tonight's format for the meeting. Pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12th, 2020 order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law, MGL Chapter 30A-18, and the Governor's March 15th, 2020 order imposing strict limitation on the number of people that may gather in one place, this meeting of the North Andover Conservation Commission will be conducted via remote participation to the greatest extent possible. Specific information and general guidelines for the remote participation by the members of the public and/or parties with the right and/or requirement to attend this meeting can be found on the town's website at www.northandoverma.gov. For this meeting, members of the public who wish to watch or listen to the meeting may do so on their televisions by tuning to Comcast Channel 8 or Verizon Channel 26 or online at www.northandovercam.org. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings in real time via technological means. In the event that we are unable to do so, despite best efforts, we will post on the Town of North Andover website an audio or video recording, transcript, or other comprehensive record of the proceedings as soon as possible after the meeting. If the public would like to participate in public hearings, please email your question or comment prior to or during the meeting to amaxner@northandoverma.gov. The question or comment will be read during the proceedings and responded to accordingly. So I will turn it over to the chairman for a roll call for attendance.
Thank you, Amy. First guy, I think, is Jack Maben, I hope.
Here.
Thank you. Joe Lynch?
Here.
Thank you. Al Mancy?
Present.
Thank you. Sean McDonough?
Present.
Thank you. And Tony Capichetti?
Present.
Thank you. And I'm Louis Napoli, the chairman, and I am here. All right, first order of business is the approval of minutes for February 10th.
Yeah, I have read those minutes, and I make a motion to approve the minutes as drafted for February 10th, 2021. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you. First order of business is an extension for 242-1719, Mass Ave and Chickering Road, Mass DOT.
All right, so the commission will recall that this order was issued in March of 2018. It governs intersection improvements at Chickering Road and Mass Ave within bordering vegetated wetland, inland bank, and intermittent stream, and the associated 100-foot buffer zone. Other improvements include new sidewalks, drainage, signals, pavement markings, and also wetland restoration. A majority of the work is complete, with monitoring of the restored wetland, checking areas for revegetation, and other punch list items having been left for the spring. The applicant's wetland restoration plan consisted of a wetland seed mix with an erosion control mix on the slopes. Planting will be monitored in accordance with the Massachusetts Inland Wetland Replication Guidelines, and the success of the restoration will include 75% vegetation, including volunteer hydrophytic species over 2 growing seasons. The wetland area was seeded in September of this past year.
Okay.
So otherwise, things are in good shape and in compliance, and so I'd recommend granting the 1-year extension.
Thank you, Amy. Jack, any questions?
I have no questions on this.
Joe?
No questions.
Al?
None.
Sean?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
Motion?
Move that we grant 1-year extension for 242-1719.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you. Next one is 242-1676, request for extension, Hillside Road Lot 1.
Alrighty, so the commission will recall having granted 2 extensions for this project already. The applicant has asked to come before the commission for a request for 1 more year beyond the 2 years that the bylaw limits us. The order was issued in April of 2016. It governs the demolition of an existing single-family house and construction of a new single-family house with associated utilities, site grading and landscaping within the 100-foot buffer zone to BBW. The existing house has been demolished. The commission required that a field stone wall be installed along the no disturb zone, and this has been constructed. But the construction of the new house has yet to commence, and there are no issues of non-compliance on the site at the present time. The applicant has asked the commission to consider a third request for extension for 1 more year, as he has had some applications with the ZBA 2 times this past year, and COVID-related delays. I did forewarn, the applicant that, this may not be approved, but he did want to, state his case to the commission, and he's here this evening if you have questions for him.
Thank you, Amy. Jack?
Well, I think our biggest hurdle here is procedurally. We're not authorized to issue a third extension by our bylaw and regulations. So, if the project is to proceed forward, we're going to have to figure out a way how to do that. But on the project itself, are things moving along, without those mitigating circumstances with the CBA and COVID restrictions? Are things moving along at a reasonable pace? Amy?
Well, I think the applicant's trying to find a buyer. Is that correct, Mr. Boyle?
Well, we have a buyer, Amy. So first of all, I want to thank you for getting me in front of this commission tonight. What happened, commission members? We lost the buyer, and another individual was going to buy the house. As they applied for a building permit, we ran into some permitting issues about interpretation of contiguous buildable area. So I got tied up for approximately 8 months as we went through this ZBA process. And then you couple that with what I've been dealing with, as well as others, with COVID, and I find myself losing the second 1-year extension. The improvements and requirements that the commission put on us under these order conditions have all been completed, with the exception of the construction of the home. So, whether it's the wetlands delineated, the gravel construction entrance, there's maybe mentioned the stone wall built, monumentation put up, but I can't close out the order conditions until I build a house and submit an as-built plan to the commission. So the other improvements and the requirements are done. So you're probably right. I read your.
You're breaking up.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, I got you.
So I
You're
read.
breaking up, Mr. Boyle. I'm sorry. I lost
It must
video on
be, it must be you, Amy, because we can hear him loud and clear.
Yep.
Okay. So I've read your the act, the Wetlands Protection Act, and I recognize organizationally, you have the order conditions is a 3-year life, and then you have the ability to grant 2 1-year extensions. So obviously, that second 1-year extension runs out April 15th. So I was obviously looking for if there's some way you could grant me an extension, or I suppose I apply again, and I don't know what other conditions would be on there because I've already done things, if you will.
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Amy.
Yes.
Okay,
Yep.
sorry.
Yeah, and I'll pass it down the table, Lou. That my thinking was kind of similar to Mr. Boyle. That procedurally we could close this out, issue a certificate of compliance. It sounds like the site is in good shape and the work done. I don't want to speak for Amy and Tyler, but sounds like the work done was done well and is stable. They could get a certificate of compliance and then get another NOI just to build the house, and do it that way. That's one way to do it procedurally that would comply with our bylaw and regs. And those are my thoughts. I'm not, they're not definitive. I'm sorry about that, but I think it's still an open question for the rest of the commission. That's all from me, Lou.
All right, thank you, Jack. Just a heads up to the commission, Governor Baker has issued a ruling that any orders can't expire until after he deems it necessary to rescind. It's part of his COVID-19 thing. So as of right now, Mr. Boyle can still operate without getting the request for an extension. So my thinking would be, and then seeing I'm here, just that we leave it alone and let him do what he has to do, because he says he has a bias, so he should be moving forward. And then
Yes,
if Baker rescinds the order of not enforcing the expiration of these filings, then he can reapply.
Or depending on how far along he is, Mr. Chair, we could always have him complete the work under an enforcement order if he's almost complete.
Exactly. I just like to stay consistent, and and it's against our bylaw to issue a third extension. So instead of changing our rules and stuff, Mr. Boyle, you can still operate as long as Governor Baker says you can. And then after that, we can if there's an issue and you're progressing with the house, I'm sure we can find some way to continue you doing it without us changing our or going around our bylaw.
That'd be great, Mr. Chairman, because I serve on a couple of committees myself in my town, and and I don't think we're going to see any COVID relief in terms of modus of operation here in the next 5 to 10 days. I think we're looking at the 3 to 6 months of this kind of scenario, I think.
Exactly. Thank you. Joe?
My mind was going in very similar directions. About 10 or 15 years ago, during an economic downturn, the governor also enacted tolling of permit expirations. I didn't hear it actually had taken place here, but in that instance, then it applied to even towns who had local bylaws. So I think we're talking about a technicality here. The reality is you've got a site in compliance. You've got some delays partly due to permitting on the applicant's part, but also recently delayed for at least the last year because of COVID issues. I think we let it continue to run as it does on a quote unquote expired but told expiration by the governor until such time as the governor rescinds that. And at that point, we have to, everybody will have to take a step back and maybe take another step at that point. But I think right now he's fine. I don't have an issue with this at all.
Thank you, Joe. Al?
I'm in agreement. Mr. Boyle has an order that will not expire. during the state of emergency or the pandemic or whatever you want to refer to it. It will not expire. The expiration dates have been told. I agree with the discussion. I'm all set.
Thank you, Al. Sean?
I'm all set as well, Lou.
Thank you, Sean. Tony?
Yeah, no, I'm in agreement with the discussion. As it's gone.
Okay.
Lou,
So,
Lou, before we move to motions, I just want to make one suggestion that we should consider. We should probably write a letter to the file and Mr. Boyle. It's just summarizing this movement we're taking, just so that it's clear what it is we're doing. I know it'll be captured in the minutes, but rather than have it being buried in the minutes, I think it might make sense to just write a brief letter stating that we're letting the project continue after expiration due to Charlie Baker's order, and make that reference.
no, that's a good point, Jack, because to get rid of, we have to deny the request for an extension, correct?
We
that
do.
We have to, okay. Do you understand what I'm saying, Mr. Boyle?
Actually, he can.
Well,
actually,
we could take
we
no
don't have to
action.
deny it. He can just withdraw it. He can withdraw his request for extension.
I think that would be better.
Yes,
That would be better.
thank you. That's exactly what, consider it withdrawn. And I appreciate the understanding of the board. And I think whoever's speaking about it, that I think it'd be great if this was documented, the action of the board.
Yeah, that's Mr. Maben. All right,
So,
we have
Mr. Chairman, if I may suggest, Mr. Boyle should send a quick either note or an email to Amy as soon as possible, requesting to withdraw the extension request, and then Amy can produce a document to the file acknowledging our actions here.
Okay. You got that, Amy and Mr. Boyle?
Yes, is that acceptable to have that? Does that have to be tonight or tomorrow morning?
Okay, very good.
I think tomorrow's fine. Wouldn't you say so, Lou?
Yeah, no, I want it now.
Okay. Well, you were mentioning earlier that we've known each other a long time. Nothing has changed.
All right, so the applicant is requested to withdraw without prejudice.
Yes, thank you.
Yep.
And I'll be in touch tomorrow, Amy.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so do we have a motion?
You want a motion to allow the withdrawal?
Yes.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous. Okay, thank you. Next one is 246 certificate of compliance for 242-1763, 34 Rosemont Drive.
All righty. The commission will recall issuing an order in October of 2019, and it governed the expansion of the rear yard by way of tree removal and grading, loaming and seeding, construction of a boulder retaining wall, installation of fencing, and a play structure. The sloped area on the wetland side of the boulder wall was to receive a native northeast wildflower mix and allowed to grow naturally. Wetland markers were required as well. Work took place between the 100 and 200 foot riverfront area to Mosquito Brook, within a 100-foot buffer zone to BBW, but outside the 50-foot no-build zone. The project engineer has provided a letter of certification noting one deviation that exists which consists of installation of riprap with a natural swale that runs between the two properties on the west property line. Riprap does not encroach into the 50-foot no-build zone and actually aids in slowing runoff between the two abutting properties, as this area does receive runoff from the neighbor's paved driveway. And it was in partially within a yard and turf grass. I've been to the site a number of times throughout the construction process, and it's remained in compliance, and I visited as late as December. The native seed mix, it took very well and growing very well, and the grass area for the yard is that filled in well. So things are totally stable, and I don't see a reason to withhold a certificate of compliance.
Thank you. Jack?
I have no questions on this one.
Joe?
No questions.
Al?
No questions.
Just a question. I just have one little question. It's not related to this project. Amy, I know we did. Is this the first one we approved on the Rosemont, or is this the second one? Remember we did one. It was at the corner.
It's the second one.
It's the second one.
And I think they're right next to each other, actually.
Okay, yeah, because I think that's what gave this guy the idea.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm all
So this
set.
is Mike Andrin with that's absolutely correct. We looked back in the proceedings for the town and looked up what they did.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Sean?
No questions.
Tony?
No questions.
Motion?
I move that we
Move to-
grant a certificate of compliance, a full and complete certificate of compliance as requested.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. We're all set. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right. The next one is 242449, a partial COC request for 464 Appleton Street. They're going to continue till
March
What-
10th.
March 10th.
Yep.
Due to some questions.
Yeah.
All those in favor? Motion.
So
we need.
moved.
Motion.
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
Sean.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous. The next one is 242-1787, 135 North Ramp Road. I have to recuse myself, so I'll turn it over to the Vice Chair, Mr. Manzi.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. 242-1787, 135 North Ramp Road. Amy, you have some information for us?
Well, I don't have a lot, just that I know that there's been discussion on the applicant side with the airport about a possible change to the final, I don't want to call it a cap, but the final treatment of the site in terms of whether it's recycled asphalt versus maybe loam and seed. So
Has any type of an amended plan or a proposal to reflect what you're talking about? Has anything like that been submitted?
no, but we do have project reps with us this evening.
Okay, very good. Let's hear from the rep.
Okay. David or there he is.
Hi guys, I'm on. This is mostly driven by engineering stormwater redesign. Is Vashek on the hearing tonight?
I don't.
Vashek, are you on?
Who's that, David?
Vashek is sorry, Vashek Tokloff is the civil engineer, designer.
Okay.
I was in touch with him earlier today, and he said that he would be in attendance this evening.
Okay.
So I was hoping to give him a minute.
We can, if you want, we can table you and take something else and then come back to you with no problem at all.
Yeah, I hate to do that, but without having him present, he would really be the one to speak here.
Well, what we're looking for, what we're basically looking for is any update in the proposal that you have before us, and any changes or modifications to your proposal, or if you need more time to get them in front of us. There's no penalty if they're not ready. I understand it's a dynamic thing that's going on, so.
Understood. Yeah, I mean, narratively, essentially what it is as opposed to using recycled asphalt on the peninsula, you know, I think that there may be a better method of vegetating that with loam and seed at the top. It won't do away with all of the wrap up there, but it will, you know, provide a more greenscape surface than hard surface for most of that peninsula that you guys are aware of.
So, just Dave, if you will allow me, let me give you my thoughts, and then I'm going to go to the commissioners because I know everybody has some ideas on this one.
Yeah.
When I look at what you call the peninsula,
Yeah.
what I want to see is a definite stopping point, if you will, from where the equipment now is stored and or operates, and I want to see a delineated stopping point to be agreed upon by the commission, proposed by you but agreed upon by us,
Right.
where you would convert it from an area that's used for the storage and operation of vehicles to an area that's used for nothing at all except being loamed and seeded. And that's the kind of thing I think we're looking for from you. And if, I don't know if you have, if you've thought about that, or if there's anything that you have proposed. There was some discussion that I was aware of. I don't know at what stage the discussion's at. Do you have anything like that prepared, or have you discussed that at all?
No, in terms of use of this area versus no, I don't think. Now again, Rob's on the line, so Rob DeRosa may be able to answer that.
Yeah, we're actually looking at a set of plans right now that we can definitely mark off the area that we propose to greenscape. But what we have to do is we want to check with DEP to see what it would do with the total suspended solids runoff from the site. So we want to run all that stuff before them to see if it's something that they would be willing to do. If not, which I don't see why they wouldn't amend to that, but we want to check with them first.
All right, while we have you guys on the line here, real quick, I understand that you're going to have to get more information from DEP. I get that, but let me just see if any of the commissioners have any comments or questions they want to get on the record right now, and then we can move this along. Okay, is that all right?
Yep. Yes. Thank you.
All right, so I'm going to start with. I think Lou had us starting with Jack Maben, and we'll just go down the line, and then we'll probably just bounce it to another date.
Okay, thanks, Al. Yeah, I remember from past discussions, there were questions of whether there were any water quality monitoring wells on the airport property adjacent to or even on this subject property. And I think there was going to be some research into whether there were some, we want to determine what the water quality is, the groundwater quality. With absence of wells, we talked about, taking some subsurface samples of the material, the fill material that's been historically filled since, I think it's been around 2007. So could one of you guys give us an update on the answers to that?
So I know that Mike Miller indicated that there were no wells in that area that would give us any information, and he checked with his own environmental consultant and verified that. As far as I know, borings aren't necessarily off the table yet, but I'll leave that to be.
Amy, this is Mike Miller. If I could have a moment, I just was able to just got my phone off of mute. I'm challenged by technology.
Okay, great.
Mr. Chairman, through you, the Commissioner Maben, yes, I did confirm. How are you, Mr. Chairman? After our last meeting when we were together, I did consult with the airport's environmental scientist, Randall Christensen, who confirmed what I thought and suspected. There are no monitoring wells on that side of the airport. So there's nothing presently in existence. And in furtherance of the desire to have some drilling done, the airport still stands committed to support the applicant to bear some of that cost to have that done.
Okay, thank you very much. So Jack, does that help you at all? Or?
Well, yeah, it does. I think it's important that we determine the potential of pollution as we percolate water through this unknown fill material. So if we can determine what the fill material is, the nature of that, we can make an educated decision on whether it will cause pollution. And I would like us to answer that question one way or another. And it seems like the applicant is agreeable to the borings if necessary. So I guess my only question at this point would be, what are we looking for as in terms of a time frame on the boring, if there is one?
Well, that's a good question, and my take on that would be, ultimately they have a request in front of us that is changing in scope as we go forward, and it appears, I'm just speculating, but it looks like the request is to find a stopping point where the area is loomed and seeded and just allowed to remain undisturbed, if you will. And the area closer to the street, there's going to be a point where it's going to be marked off and delineated where there's basically going to be a no-go zone. And so that the drilling, the coring and learning about what's down there is part and parcel to where that cutoff line is going to be, where the area can be used versus not used. That's all going to be determined by what we find down below. So
okay.
I think they're tied together, absolutely.
Yeah, questions need to be answered before we consider boring.
Yeah, and also before we consider where the cutoff is going to be, because for example, if you come in from the street, you're going to go to a certain point, and then there's going to be a delineation line right there that's going to be a no-go line, if you will, for lack of a better term. And if we're to honor their request to seed it and loom it, and so for us to be able to honor that request and put an order of conditions on it that makes sense for the site and sense for the groundwater, we have to know what's percolating through. I think your point is right on. So I agree with you 100%.
No more questions for me, Al.
All right, very good. Mr. Lynch?
Yeah, well, I think we are right on the fringe of getting this thing resolved. What we really need is for DEP to agree that not quote-unquote capping it with RAP makes sense, in that infiltrating water through that is something that's not environmentally problematic to them. And that needs a determination by solid waste first. Having that been made, what we have is the players of the applicant and the landowner, the airport commission, in agreement that they would like to loom and seed it. It's come a long way to get to that point. If DEP agrees to that, then we can hone in on exactly what sort of subsurface investigations ought to be done. It certainly simplifies the stormwater management analysis and review. And from there, I think we're very, very close to being able to issue an order of conditions. And that's not a question so much as an outright statement. And I think if, we're looking at another couple of weeks to get to that point, I think we're moving forward from there. I'm all set.
What I'm hearing, and I agree with this, we need DEP to render an opinion. The applicant needs to get an opinion from DEP. It sounds like the airport manager, the landlord, if you will, is on board and is willing to work with us on this. So it's just a matter now of getting the applicant and DEP on the same page, and then yes, we can then issue an order of conditions.
In my understanding, were it not for some situations with the applicant's representative with the health concern, that probably would have been done for tonight. But the hope is that by the next meeting that will have been done, and I think we're moving forward from there.
All right, excellent. Sean?
Amy, have you had any communications with DEP on this filing?
Not since the last meeting, which was the questions that I posed to them was, is the proposed treatment of the site acceptable from a solid waste point of view? And basically the telephone conversation with Jill Provincial, she said, yes, it's acceptable.
And she said what? I couldn't hear you. There was some background.
She said yes, that the proposal was acceptable with, not, the wrap that, what the plan has said all along, not this new proposal of loaming and seeding, but the wrap. So she did say basically that.
Well, we're not talking about it. We're not talking about a wrap now, are we?
Oh, I know that, right? I'm just saying that's all I've had for DEP conversation.
All right, so we need new. Okay, so I very good. Sorry. Go ahead, Sean.
No, my only other thought is I think we need borings out there. But other than that, I don't have any other questions or thoughts at this point.
Very good. Thank you, Tony.
Yeah, I'm not eligible on this one because I've done work on the property.
I make that same mistake every week. All right, so we got to give a David. You got to come away from this with a definite punch list on behalf of the applicant. And it sounds like you have to get in touch with DEP to talk about whether or not they're okay with the soil loam and seeding on the top. Am I correct there?
Yeah, both. I think Vashek and I have both reached out to Jill Provincial with emails and phone calls in the last 48 hours, and I haven't got a reply yet. So,
right. So we need that from we need that from you, and we need to get hone in on the boring to know what's down there. Those are the two things that are outstanding that the commission wants. The commission wants soil borings. And we definitely want you to get on board with DEP so that we can then craft an order of conditions that makes sense.
Very well.
So, do you have any questions of us at this time?
Not at this time. I don't think so.
Okay. All right. Very good. Anybody, any other member of the commission have any questions or comments at this time?
I'm fine.
None.
Okay, I hear none. Amy?
Yep.
Will you please be in contact with them this week or next week to kind of start to craft what it is we're looking for?
Okay.
And get DEP to get on board so we can start moving on this.
Okay.
Please.
Yeah.
And I'm available during the day if you need to call me to get me to call anybody. I'm happy to do it.
Okay. So I just want to make sure you guys are. Do you need me to do anything about the borings? Do you need me to get quotes or?
Yeah, I mean we need to identify someone who can do the boring, and find out their availability and price. We need to get that. That has to be done right away. We're never going to get it off the ground until somebody actually talks to a company that is capable of doing it and understands the scope of work that we want.
Al, this is Joe. I'm
Yes.
still unclear. So you're not proposing that the Conservation Commission hire the subsurface exploration company. Should it not be the applicant and in agreement with the Airport Commission and the landowner who actually commissions this? And the money shouldn't flow through us. The contract shouldn't flow through us. It should be just that the engineering firm or the exploration firm that's doing the work is competent. That's all we need to concern ourselves with. We're not going to be the client.
No, we're not. I'm not suggesting that we be the procurers at all. But I am suggesting that we get the ball rolling here. We've talked about it now for the last 4 meetings, and we're still just talking about it. So either the applicant or the Airport Commission and or our administrator have to get on board in terms of at least identifying or putting out an RFP or something. Something has to happen. We have to get it.
I think that from my perspective, what Amy ought to be doing is making certain that the proponent, the applicant, and the landowner are in fact moving in that direction and that they're prepared to move forward, because we won't send it out for review until we have that information. I think they're pretty clear in understanding that. And if someone's on the line who might be able to answer this, they may be already on the way to having somebody at least sitting in the queue prepared to embark. But until we get that answer from DEP, we don't know exactly where those borings are going to occur, because it may not be concentrated onto the infiltration area if in fact we're going to be infiltrating over a loam and seed area over a broader area. We may want more borings a little more out on the peninsula. I think Amy make sure that they're talking to people and have somebody ready to go when the time is appropriate. The ball's in their court.
Here's the thing. Let me just put this out there. My experience with hiring anybody to do any kind of work is it requires at the minimum specifications and a scope of work, and beyond that possibly an RFP, putting out an RFP to get people to respond. So
only in the public sector. So if the airport is going to commission this on their own, I don't mean the word commission in the sense that they mean it, but if they're going to hire it under their own, that they have to procure it in a certain sense. But if the applicant, Rosa, is doing it on their own, the reality is they could just pick up the phone and hire the competent firm that they wish to hire, and no procurement.
They don't know what they're asking for. They don't know what they're asking to be done yet.
It's what I'm saying is until we know what DEP says, neither do we.
So then what I'm hearing from you is take no action towards procuring a driller until we get more from DEP. Is that what I'm hearing?
What I'm saying is if you're asking him to do something, what it should be is that making certain that the owner of the land, the airport commission, and the applicant, Rosa, they are in fact poised and ready to move forward when it is we get the answer from DEP.
Okay, the good news is we have Mr. Miller at the meeting tonight, so let's ask Mr. Miller that question.
Mr. Chairman, through you.
How are you, Mr. Miller?
Chairman.
Sorry to sabotage you with this question, but Mr. Lynch's question is valid. It is a valid question. Are you and the applicant in a position where you're ready to procure and start a driller?
We have talked, the applicant and the airport have talked, and I have confirmed it with my airport commission, and they're on board. However, as you alluded to, if it's a procurement done through the airport, it's a public procurement process, and we have to do the RFP. But we also need to know scope of services. What's the extent of the work that is going to be bid out? So we're kind of, I think, waiting for guidance from the Conservation Commission as to what extent of borings they'd be looking for, because we would have to put that in the bid package. But we are prepared and ready to go once we definitively know what needs to be done. We're ready to move forward and have it done.
Okay, just stay on the line for a second, if you would. Joe, is that satisfied?
Actually, that's helpful. Michael, this is Joe Lynch. Is it the thought that DeRosa is going to hire the subsoil exploration company, or would it be the airport commissioner that hires it, or would it be jointly? And how does that affect the procurement process from your end?
I think it's going to have to be the airport does the procurement, because I would have a difficult time justifying cutting a check to a private company. You know, I could procure the services to be provided, but there'd be they'd want to know an explanation as to why we're cutting a check to this company for what purpose and reason.
Okay, so you would be the lead doing that. You would
yes,
be the lead.
we would be the lead.
Okay, so the sooner we can get the DEP's documented, support that loaming and seeding makes sense, the sooner it is we all can put together that scope. And I'd be more than willing to work with you on that and with my fellow commissioners as long as we don't have a quorum. But what it really boils down to is either a concentration of borings in the collected stormwater infiltration area, or is it fewer, one or two in that area, and others out on the peninsula where other infiltration is going to occur. Those are the choices that we're awaiting DEP's answer on.
So Joe, I understand exactly what you're saying now. So would it make sense, since the commission is going to have to assist the airport commission and the applicant in terms of putting together the scope of work, would it make sense to establish a subcommittee at this time, willing to be able to take calls and answer questions going forward to make
I'd be
Okay.
more than willing to on that.
Okay, I also would volunteer my time. I need a third person to volunteer to be on the subcommittee, or we can do it with two.
I can
so-
do it, Al. This is Jack.
Okay, Mayday Maven makes it a hat trick. Okay, so Amy, for the record, we're going to establish a subcommittee of Joe Lynch, Jack Maven, and myself to communicate and facilitate with the Airport Commission and the applicants' representatives.
Great. Okay. Duly noted.
And if we just make I'm thinking just an email chain with how to get in touch with us, and the subcommittee will communicate amongst themselves.
Okay.
Hey, Al, this is Sean.
Yes, sir.
So, I mean, there's only 4 of us voting here, and the subcommittee is made up of 3. Do we really need a subcommittee just minus me?
Well, if we put you on, that's a quorum.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll tell you what. I'll be happy to step off and put you on. So we'll let the record reflect that I'm stepping off the subcommittee because I'm chairing it. And
that makes sense, Al. Exactly. As chair, you want the subcommittee to report back to you.
Yeah, I'm very happy that Sean has corrected me on that. I appreciate that. So Sean McDonough, congratulations. You're on the subcommittee, and I'm going to continue to step back.
Sean, did you see that?
What subcommittee?
Oh,
the one that's going to be meeting at your house in a couple days. That subcommittee.
Well, then I wish you were on it, Al.
It can't be a quorum. It has to be 3. So, all right. Any other questions, comments, concerns, or can we continue this? All right. So I'll be looking for a motion from someone.
I move that we continue this discussion to the next meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you all.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Commissioners.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner.
That's helpful.
Mr. Napoli, I yield the chair.
Thank you. 242 1800 158 Forest Street, requested continue till April 14th.
So
So
moved.
move. Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous. Thank you. Next one is enforcement order, 0 Turnpike Street, Middleton Farm Supply.
Alrighty. So, on or around January 5th, 2021, the Conservation Department received a call from a neighbor about piles of cut wood and other construction related debris encroaching into the isolated wetland that is located on the Middleton Farm Supply property, which straddles Middleton and North Andover. So this violation was on the North Andover side. The Conservation Department staff visited the site shortly thereafter and did find several areas where there were cut wood or wood pallets, section of wood fencing, PVC piping that were very close to the wetland, and there was a discrete pile of cut wood in the wetland. We issued a violation letter, and we advised them to start removal of the materials and appear this evening to give us an update. So in the interim, they secured the services of Greg Hockmuth with Williams and Sparagis, and he's with us this evening. Taylor, our field inspector, and Greg went out this morning to a site inspection and found that there was some progress made for removal of the material within the wetland. But there are some other areas that need some attention that included storage of mechanical equipment, push mowers and snow blowers, etc., within 5 to 10 feet of the edge of the wetland. There is what seems to be a new brush pile of freshly cut material located about 20 feet from the edge of the wet, and there is a big pickup truck with a open bed full of loose trash that's beginning to get blown around to the wetland. So I can give you my recommendations, or you can ask questions, and Greg's here to aid in answering questions as well. It's up to you.
Thank you, Amy. Jack?
Yeah, this looks pretty straightforward to me, and I looked at your recommendations and I agree with them, pretty much at every bullet point. I think we're missing one thing though. I agree with cease and desist, remove materials, permanently mark the 25-foot no disturb, and then establish a deadline. But I think we have to specify that the applicant or the violator also restore any wetland and 25-foot no disturb impacts, through mechanical means and restoration planting. So I'm in agreement with your approach. I think it's right on the money. I think it's just missing that one thing, and that I think would do it. So that's all I have, Lou.
Thanks, Jack. Joe?
I agree with everything Jack just said, but I got a clarification I need to understand first. Is this not the same parcel of land that was before us recently in the past year, maybe 18 months?
Yes.
Represented by Greg Hoffmuth?
Yep.
Yes.
Or an ANRAD, yes.
So these folks who are the owners know what they have out there. So this is a blatant violation. I believe fines are more than appropriate and should be levied in this case. They knew what they had, and they did this anyway. So I think it stopped short of issuing fines, and it really ought to issue fines.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if I may just elaborate a little bit. It's Greg Hockmuth from Williams and Sparages.
Go ahead, Greg. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I just wanted to jump in. I got a call from Steve Morrison, who took over the property. He's been managing the property now for probably the last 10 years. His father recently passed away, and Steve's been doing his best to kind of clean up the area. I think many people know this site. It's been used for many things over the years. And to some extent, it's been maintained right to the wetland edge in spots. The area that we're talking about, there's a small isolated wetland in between the condominium development and the Middleton Farm Supply property. Much of that area was maintained right to the edge of the wetlands in spots. So in essence, there really was no 25-foot no disturb zone for a long, long time out here. And in fact, I think that wetland was the result of the development next door. It just kind of created this pocket in between the two properties. And nonetheless, it is a jurisdictional resource area now. We were before the commission back in 2019 with an ANRAD application. And that was just a filing to memorialize the resource area boundaries. At that point in time, they had somebody interested in the property that was going to do some type of a development over here. That went away, but in between that and now, and actually over the last probably 20 plus years, they've been leasing out portions of this property to different entities. And it seems like the problem tenants are always the landscape contractors. And in this particular spot, he's got two landscape contractors that he's actively trying to evict. But as you know, it's not difficult to evict people. But that's no excuse. I mean, his office is right around the corner. He should be more aware of what his tenants are doing on his property, especially knowing that there was a jurisdictional wetland there. When he called me, I said, well, I want to come out and see it. And I reached out to Amy, and Taylor met me out there today, and we took a look, and things were different than the last time I was out there. There was certainly some more piles closer to the wetland. As Amy described, there was some log piles actually in the wetlands, and there was a junk car, there was landscaping equipment, some pallets that were pushed over, and just some random debris, some flower pots, and just not a really clean area. And a recent pile where some landscape debris had been dumped, some of which contained Asiatic bittersweet and other invasives, which you clearly don't want. So it needs to be cleaned up. And Steve, the property owner, Steve Morrison, agrees 100%. He wanted to get on them today and get them to do it. But I told him not to do anything until we come to the commission and we can talk about it and find out what the next steps are. With all of that said, I think within a half day, most of the work being done by hand, some of the larger piles will need to be removed with the machine with the thumb attachment. I think within a half day, you could have this area cleaned up and back to what it was. And I mentioned to Steve also, I said, look, you've got a lifeguard out there now. Clearly your neighbors are watching and you have to be careful, you know, and anything you do in this spot is going to prompt a call probably to the Conservation Commission. So if you are going to have tenants on the site, landscape contractors, get them out of the buffer zone and put them in a spot where they can't cause you problems. So he agrees 100%, and he's willing and able to do whatever it is the commission wants. But I just wanted to say all of that before the commission starts talking about fines, because I think it's worth giving him a chance to clean up that area. And if that cleanup doesn't go well, then maybe consider fines. But he openly had admitted to me that he didn't realize how bad it was and that he hasn't been over to that part of the site in quite a while. But when I went over there with him today, he was just shaking his head. Amy mentioned there was a dump truck there and it was just full of trash, you know, old chainsaws, weed whackers, and just trash that had just pulled in the last 2 days. And this is from one of the tenants, one of the two that's over there that he's trying to evict.
Thank you, Craig.
Yeah.
Joe, you have anything more to say?
Yeah, I certainly am compassionate to you know, Greg's position on this. I think the fines are appropriate, but I also want to give them good opportunity to make good on all of it is that they want to promise. So I think non-criminal disposition allows fines up to $25 per day. I think they should levy at $25 a day and toll up to a particular date certain. At which point, if they perform, the fines can extinguish, and if they don't perform, the fines stand. So I think it's an appropriate position, and it's kind of like middle of the road, give them an opportunity to make good on it, and hopefully make good on it. And at the same token, if they don't, protects us, given the seriousness of what we see out there.
Thank you, Joe.
So what I don't know is the amount of time that Greg is thinking that they might need in order to be able to come into compliance, perform those things that he recommends.
So that's a good question. And, there's still some pretty good sized snow piles out there, but we lost probably half a foot today just by it being 50 degrees. I would say as soon as we can see the ground again, there's no reason why they can't start the cleanup. And I really think half day, a day max, they can have this area cleaned up to what it was.
So we said $25 a day. It continues to accumulate right up to May 1st. And if you accomplish everything at May 1st, the fines can get extinguished and go away. You think that's something you're capable of doing?
Absolutely. I think we need to talk about what it is that needs to be done. There was some talk about reestablishing the 25-foot no disturb zone. I personally know where the limit of work was. And I think if there's some oversight by a wetland scientist, checking in with the commission periodically, or just a pre and post report even, we can get it back to what it was fairly easy. But if the commission does insist that the 25-foot no disturb zone be created and that they plant that area, then that's a little different. That will take some more time. But you may recall the gravel went almost to the wetland edge. And this is a spot where they used to park trailers. It used to be a dirt bike track. Before that, it was a horse farm. You know, it was, for all intents and purposes, the 25-foot no disturb zone, I don't think ever existed out here.
That's Greg. That's exactly where I was going to go. Is that if we had a pre-existing condition, the determination of where that was didn't necessarily make them do anything other than keep status quo. So I'm not so much asking to restore the 25. I think what we're asking is that everything that was disturbed beyond that, or any activity that occurred within that, be satisfied in order to meet this fine extinguishing requirement. Is that clear?
It is. And, you know, I don't want to downplay this because it's not good what's being done out here. They've just been pushing stuff into the woods. The stuff that they've been pushing, though, can easily be removed. I think the commission caught it early enough before it got to that point. You know, I think a good solid half day to a day out here, they can get it cleaned up. But, you know, they probably need a week or so for the conditions to just allow them to do so.
Okay.
I think having some sort of a fine that's tallying with the threat of being implemented will light the fire under them to do the right thing. So I think that's more than fair.
Okay, I'm all set. Let's see what the other commissioners think of that perspective.
Thank you, Joe. Al?
Hi, how are you? So, Greg, I have a couple different ideas here, but my first look I remember walking this with you a couple of years ago. I remember we did a site walk out there and we were trying to identify some different areas on site. Do you recall that site walk?
I do. Yep.
And what was the plan then when we walked the site?
Yeah. So the plan then, the big bone of contention was this ditch that existed, and we were trying to figure out if that ditch was a jurisdictional intermittent stream that left this isolated wetland. And during the ANRAD process, we were able to come to the conclusion that it was nothing more than a ditch, and it wasn't a jurisdictional resource area. And I think the point of our site walk was to take a close look at that ditch as well as the resource area itself.
But I guess where I'm leaning here is this is, in my opinion, this is clearly a management problem. The violators are tenants. You stated that he's attempting to evict them. Again, that tells me that's a management problem because it's very easy to evict a non-residential tenant. It's the residential tenants that are difficult to evict. These are just landscapers with trucks and trailers and firewood. Evicting them should take no effort at all. And I'm wondering why we're not issuing the fines to them in addition to the landowner, since they're the ones that actually did the deed. But that's just a question I'm putting out there for anybody else to answer. What I'd like to see ultimately after the place is cleaned up is I'd like to see a very clear line, a delineation line identifying the no disturb zone. We have no idea what the owner's intentions are going forward. You had mentioned earlier that his plans have changed over the past 2 years. I don't know if I'm going to have the patience to play this game every year because he doesn't know how to manage his property. So I think that we're going to have to help him by showing him where the stop sign is. And I think that we should be levying fines against those landscapers, the tenants. They're the ones that did it. They should be included in the fine chain. And that's my 2 cents. I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Al. Before I forget, I'm in total agreement with you going after the violators. That they should be held accountable also. First of all, Greg, I'm going to tell you right now, this is going to test your respectability on this commission, on this project, because you know that it's one big giant violation. I mean, they've been filling for years that place is enlarged threefold since I can remember just barely seeing it from 114. Now it's like a metropolis. Them doing this, the dumping and invading the wetlands. I am agreeing with Joe and Al that after we clean up the mess, that all of the wetlands and the 25 no disturb should a permanent barrier should be there, and there should be medallions stating that it's wetlands, and you should come up with some type of plan to show us where everything is when it's done, or have Taylor go out there or Amy, and so we can put this thing to sleep, because this and I'm not blaming the son. I mean, this has been a violation for years, and his neighbor was not too better. He's on a Superfund site, and so and even next door where the apartments were, when it was a horse farm, they trucked in trailers and trailers and trailers full of stuff. I don't know where it is, and I don't want to know, but they took it out of Boston Harbor. So I know it's out back there somewhere, but I don't want to know where it is. But like I said, they were all in cahoots together. So I would, you got some work to do.
Well, I don't have any stake in this, Lou, and all I can tell you is what it looked like when I first walked on that property. And I can tell you that it looks a little different now, but the difference that I saw can easily be fixed.
Okay.
What's been done over the years out here, I had no part of. I do think that this little wetland that exists is a result of the development on both properties, just trapping water. When we filed the ANRAD, we locked in the wetland lines. This work is in the buffer zone. It needs to be corrected, but I don't know what you meant about my respectability with this commission.
Well, I'm just saying there's a lot there. I'm not questioning your respectability whatsoever. I'm just saying there's a lot of work there. I wasn't in favor of the brook that got filled in. You said it was a trench, and we never really pursued it because you were I don't know who you were representing at the time. I think you were representing the buyer, withdrew. So that kind of put everything asleep. But now it's back. So I think, remember we questioned the water quality. There was orange water coming out of a pipe. And then Joe Lynch mentioned that it could be drainage from 114. But that's the end of there. But I mean, I think if this guy's going to hire you, he should make the entire property compliant. I mean, I know there's wetlands on both sides, and you got Middleton involved that has wetlands at stake here too. So I don't think this is a quick fix. I think we now that it's before us again, I think it's time we do it right.
I agree, and it would be easy enough to put some type of permanent markers in place along this limit of work edge once this area is cleaned up. There's no shortage of boulders on the site. Maybe this is a good spot to put one of the commission's boulder walls, something along those lines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that we require a boulder wall or a farmer's wall, and I'm with you where they have a large equipment. Boulder walls would be better, but that would be a part of it too. But I don't think we just. I mean, I don't know if you walked the whole site when you looked at this thing, but I know you did for the ANRAD. I'm sure there's other spots that could be straightened out and cleaned up. I think we should. It's Middleton Farm Supply, so I think it should be the whole property, not just this one violation spot that you spot with these landscapers. I think the whole site should be looked over, and wherever the wetlands are, we should put permanent barriers and medallions.
So on the North Andover side of the property, the jurisdictional resource areas are somewhat limited. The good news is that the major wetland system that's between here and the state park is untouched, and there's a large wooded buffer in between.
Okay.
And that's in great shape. The area where the culvert was, where we saw that different colored water, that's a small, I think there's probably 4 or 5 flags that were within North Andover. So again, that's a small portion. It's in the woods. This little wetland where this recent violation is occurring is really the only one on the North Andover side that's within the commission's jurisdiction where there's the need for markers, in my opinion. The bulk of the other wetlands are on the Middleton side.
Okay.
And after talking with Steve Morrison today, you know, all these little trailers that are there, he's really working with the owner of the trailers to get all of them out. But at the same time, he's trying to be fair, just because of everything that's going on. You know, a lot of these people that rent space and store equipment out here, they've fallen on tough times. I know that's not the commission's problem, but he is really trying to clean the area up, and he really does want to sell it to somebody that wants to do something out here that will stop all these little things from happening and just have one building or one use that the commission can regulate, that can have stormwater management. So that is his goal, and he's working on it. But it's just not the best time to do so.
Okay, I understand, but I just wanted you, you talk to the applicant and tell him that that's kind of like compliant, and it's only going to help him when he goes to sell it, because we're going to require the same stuff to the next guy.
Right.
So I'm just being proactive on it, but that's all I have to say. Sean?
I mean, I think you guys have hashed it all out. It does sound like that there's a lot of violations on that site that have been going on for a long time, and it's been occurring with not a lot of thought about the wetlands in the area. So I'm comfortable with the approach my fellow commissioners are taking on this one. Thanks, Lou.
Thanks, Sean. Tony?
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty comfortable with where you're going with this. You know, if there's room for improvement in lieu of fines, I always look at that. You know, if we can make the situation better. I mean, I haven't been out there, but looking at some of the pictures, it looks like there is some bittersweet around some of the trees. And if they're in there cleaning it out, if they would have removed that, I think I'd look favorably upon that. But yeah, I think it needs to be cleaned up, and setting a date certain makes sense to me.
Thank you, Tony. We'll go back to Joe, because he was talking about the fines. How do you want to? What's that?
Lou, you there?
I'm here.
It just broke up. I didn't hear what you said.
I said, well, you were the one with talking about the fines, so I would like to have you just, what you think we should go in that route.
Well, I think the fines are appropriate, giving them a realistic opportunity to comply, and in good faith. If they do, it all goes away. It's a good motivator. And if they don't, well, that kind of says that maybe it wasn't good faith. So I think the fines are appropriate, but give them a reasonable amount of time to do the things that we just discussed them doing.
Okay. So you want to do the wording? You said May 1st. I thought you said.
Well, I threw that out there as a target, and I think I heard Greg say that he thought that was attainable. What we didn't talk about in detail is, so what is that we expect them to do by May 1st? So removing the piles and establishing, signs of limits of disturbance, those things are pretty straightforward, but anything beyond that is more abstract. So I think $25 a day fine, May 1st being that deadline, and what we should focus on is what we want them to do by May 1st as an exhibition of good faith.
Joe, if I could offer a suggestion, the photographs that show the different violations.
Yep.
The items in the photographs should be the starting of the work list. That should be the work list of things you want accomplished
Absolutely.
by May 1st.
And I think that's very, very doable. Is there anything more that we want beyond that? we're not going to ask them to start restoring stuff before then.
No,
Or-
restoration shouldn't begin before then, but cleaning up and removing and curing the violations between now and then would be probably the most appropriate use of that time, I think. And we have pictures.
agree.
The pictures are the best evidence. We say, okay, make these pictures go away, and then go back and take another look.
Also, Al, Taylor did a site walk with Greg today, and he called me and told me about all the violations. We could have Taylor put a list together and email it to all the commissioners, so they have a general idea of what's going on over there. If you think that would help.
Well,
because the problem you have is there's a lot more violations out there, Al, than you see in the photos. For instance, there's a pile of asphalt. There's a junk car. I mean, there's more there. You really need. I know what it looked like before, and I think you'd probably want to.
Well, what we need, Greg, is we need good doable language for an enforcement order.
Yeah,
and we want to issue an enforcement order with a date certain for compliance, and then Joe has identified a time area that sounds reasonable to everybody. So we just got to give them a good punch list. This is what we want done in this period of time, and that's where we all go. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't mean to interrupt. Is it too much to ask to say, you know what, let's clean up the wetland in the 25?
Well, it sounds like that should be the minimum, Amy.
Yeah. Okay.
But we want more than that.
Okay.
Well, I think we want a barrier too.
And
yes.
Right.
So clean up the wetland, clean up the 25, remove the violations, and establish a barrier. I think those should be the minimum things that we look for in an enforcement order. That would be my opinion on that.
And placards.
And what?
Placard. Part of the barrier. The
placards or a proposal where to put a permanent delineator. Yeah, that's great. I would agree with that too. Sure.
And it might be as simple too as just saying that if you intend on using this area as a contractor's storage yard or any other use, that you'd have to file with the Conservation Commission. Based on my review of the historic aerials, this was a field, it was a dirt bike track, it was used to store construction trailers, but it was never historically used an area for two landscape contractors to store all their equipment and stockpile their materials. So I think it's appropriate for the commission to require removal of all of those activities, not just from the 25, but from the 100-foot buffer zone altogether.
Sounds like good language to me for an enforcement order.
And Greg, all of that is still doable by May 1st?
Oh yeah, as soon as he wanted to start today, and I told him not to do anything. He said, "I'll tow their stuff out of here, even if they don't."
Okay, so let's in the order of expedience here, let's take a shot at a motion that would be the language for the enforcement order. So we the commission would order the removal of all violations from the wetland and the 25, or do you want it to say from the all violations from the 100? I'm looking for some suggestions here.
So how about restore the isolated wetland, the 25-foot, and cease and desist all non-historic operations within the 100-foot buffer zone without filing for an RDA or a notice of intent.
I like that.
Well, I think the only problem is it's not. I mean, there's some spots where the gravel goes to the, within 10 feet of the wetland. So it's really a variable width, no disturb zone out there, but it's easy to define. You can see where it was.
But I'm looking to be restored to its historic condition. So if historically it was 10 feet off with the gravel road, then bring it up to there, but all the trash in that back, that's kind of the non-historic, you know, so if you have an old aerial photograph that shows the access drives within 10, 15 feet of the wetland, then that's fine, as long as it's not being used for something that it wasn't before. If it's maneuvering area or the like, then it could continue, but and it's tough without having been there.
So we do have some pretty good photos and some survey data, so we can help him reestablish that line where things were, and that's where I think the boulders should be placed.
All right, so we need to just start an enforcement order right now, Greg. That's something that we can always add to it and amend it later. But we need to establish or issue. We have to issue an enforcement order right now that's doable right now. So Amy, what would you want to be the minimum language in the enforcement order to get it going?
All right, so clean up the isolated wetland. I would say clean up the 25. I would say if you guys are cool with reestablishing the pre-existing limit of disturbance, when I say disturbance, so whatever the gravel road to within 10, 15 feet of the wetland, do that, and then establish the barrier.
So that language would include all the violations that are in the photos. Yes.
Yeah, because they're all up against the wetland.
I think you should list. Maybe you should list all these, because Taylor had an arm length full of violations.
Yeah.
When he went with Greg today, so I think you should put them in the enforcement order.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I'll list as many as Taylor found, and you know, obviously some of it's snow covered, but.
Right.
Well, let's. I mean, if I may suggest, let's start there now. We can always add or amend in any time, but we need to give Greg something to start with tonight, so that he can get his client, you know, going on it right away.
Okay.
So let's start with the most immediate thing, and it's clean up the 25, and remove all the violations.
Okay.
And establish a 25.
Okay.
I'm just putting it out there.
I agree with that. I think, I don't know when the gravel part went into the 10-foot setback. And I'd like to see when that did happen, in order to, rather than accept it as a historical use from, you know, decades ago. I'd like to clean up the entire 25 and go from there.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I agree with Jack and Al. I think pinpointing exactly when that happened is going to be impossible. And the reality is, any application moving forward, we would want that reestablished. Now is the time to do it.
Okay, so I'll start the motion off here by saying that I move that the landowner, Middleton Farm Supply, be ordered to effective immediately commence the cleanup and restoration of the 25-foot no disturb zone, removal of all violations, cease and desist of all activities, including but not limited to tenants. And anybody else that wants to chime in there and amend or add to that, please do.
I would like them to propose a barrier, a permanent barrier.
Okay.
And the placards.
Yep. At the 25 foot.
Yes.
Anybody else?
Would it be too much to ask for a status update by next meeting?
Definitely not too much to ask for that at all.
Absolutely.
So that would be my motion, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, that's fine. And the $25 $25
a day.
Till
yeah,
May 1st.
That was Joe's suggestion. That should be incorporated into the enforcement order.
Yes.
And that's to be held in abeyance as long as they meet these
So-
directives by May 1st.
Made by May 1st, correct?
Next,
And like I said, it's a good start because we're not done.
Anybody else want to add or amend that motion?
So we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous. Amy, I would also suggest that I already told Taylor this anyways, that you let Middleton Conservation know what's going on so we can.
Absolutely. We'll CC him on this enforcement order as well.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Greg.
all right, thanks,
Thanks, Greg.
have a good night.
Thank you,
You
Greg.
too.
Thank you.
Next one is enforcement order on 81 Bonnie Lane.
All righty. So the commission will recall issuing an enforcement order in March of, no, I'm sorry. I forget when you, I'm sorry, when you issued it, it was a while ago. But you established a deadline of March 10th for a survey.
Who's cleaning the garage up in the background? Whoever's doing that has to stop.
That's me. That's our loud ice machine. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay, thank you. It sounded like you were shoveling rocks in the garage.
Those ice sound delicious.
And I'm not saying you're doing a bad thing, but you just gotta close the door or something.
Sorry.
Oh,
All
that's
right, buddy.
So anyway, the commission established a deadline for a survey as-built plan of the property that was to also reflect a replanting plan that was going to incorporate the existing boulders on the site. The applicant has, or the homeowner has secured Marchionda to do the survey, but with the snow cover, he indicated that he wouldn't be able to get it done for the March 10th deadline and asked for an extension. The homeowners have been very responsive in this enforcement situation and have stayed in contact with me throughout the process and made great progress. Julie Vondrack is the wetland consultant. She is working on the planting plan. So that's moving along. So I recommend that a 30-day extension be granted for the as-built submission for April 10th, 2021.
Okay, thank you. Jack, any questions?
Yeah, I agree with Amy. This violator cleaned up the site right away, stabilized it right away. They're having trouble getting this plan in, the restoration plan. I think 30 days is good. Is that what Marchionda is asking for, Amy? 30 days or?
He asked for a little less, but I think it's appropriate to round it up for 30 days.
Okay, so it sounds like 30 days is a doable thing.
Yeah.
Yep,
For the record,
okay.
Julie Vondrack is president of the behalf of the applicants. I just want to make sure I'm
Hi,
signing in.
Julie.
Hello, good evening.
Sorry about
Hi, Julie.
Yes, hello, good evening. I've been in touch. Paul called me actually weeks ago after Mumi had secured his services. And I did talk with Paul because I told him I want a very specific survey out there showing a lot of the erosion controls, a lot of the silt stocks are buried under snow too. And he basically, told me it would be difficult to obviously do the survey, especially, I do have a draft planting plan prepared, but I don't have square footages, and I do want his survey to pick up the limits of the erosion control so that I can really define my limits of my restoration area. So I think the letter, I know Marchionda submitted a request to you guys too, and he was hoping by the end of March, but he said, there's a possibility we could still have snow at the end of March. So, he's willing to get out there as soon as he can, as soon as snow melts. But I mean, I don't know if we're under, 2 feet of snow again by the end of March. Hopefully not.
I hope so.
You hope so? I hope not. I got tulips in my house right now. I'm going for spring, so I'm done. So like I said, yes, the applicant has been moving forward. I have been in touch with them. I do have a draft plan, so I can assure you I'm working on. We're just kind of waiting on that final plan, final square footages, and I even want to be on the site when the surveyors go out to make sure they do pick everything up that we want to be shown in the plan. So I'm hoping, the April 10th, but I know they got to get out there, prepare the plan. So it's just hard. It's going to be weather dependent, my understanding from Shonda.
Yeah.
I'm happy with the direction of this, Lou.
Okay. Thanks, Jack. Joe?
I have no questions. Good faith, good performance.
Okay. Al?
So Jack and I went out there on the site, and we met Julie out there sometime in the past when this first came before us. And I think Julie's doing a great job of restoring it. And I want to point out that this is another good example of a well-meaning person hiring a landscaper and then reasonably relying upon the landscaper giving them bad information. And this is just another example of that. There are many. We have them all the time in front of us, the violations, and the homeowner says, well, I hired Joe Smith, but he told me I was all set. And that's what happened to these people. So this is going in the right direction, and I'm all set. Thank you.
Thanks. Sean?
I'm all set, Lou. Thanks.
Okay. Tony?
No, I'm all set. They're being responsive and communicating. That's all you can ask for.
Thanks, Tony. All right, so we need a motion to extend the enforcement order for 30 days.
So moved.
So, second.
Boy, we get four moves in 4 seconds. That's good.
You can't go wrong. You can't go wrong now, Lou.
No.
I can see where the vote's going to go.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
Thanks,
All
Julie.
set. Thanks, Julie.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay. General new old business. Academy Road Conservation Restriction.
All righty. So the commission may recall that it holds a conservation restriction on 3 parcels on Academy Road, and that was secured in 2016. Center Realty Trust is the owner of the parcels. Center Realty Trust is transferring Parcel A to the North Andover Improvement Society. According to James Warden, who is a trustee of the Center Realty Trust, they're starting to wind down the trust, and they're identifying good new owners and stewards for their buildings and vacant lands. And the Improvement Society kind of fit the bill for this Parcel A for them. Improvement Society will continue with the caretaking of this parcel, which includes, annual mowing and such. No changes or new uses are planned. According to the restriction under Section 3A, Paragraph 10, which is prohibited and permitted acts and uses, the conveyance of part or a portion of the premises alone or division of the subdivision of the premises requires prior written consent of the grantee. So the owners are giving 60-day notification to the Conservation Commission and the Board of Selectmen that this transfer is intended, and they are looking for the Commission's blessing on this transfer.
Thank you, Amy.
Yep.
I don't know about blessing, but we'll work on it.
Well, you know what I mean. Approval, whatever.
There you go. Jack?
Yeah, this Parcel A, this Lot A is a pretty prominent one, right? Being right next to that historic cemetery. So just so I got it right, are we the grantee in this situation, or is the town?
Well, I think the town and the CR is under our care and custody.
Yep. Okay.
If the town holds the fee and we are custodians of the conditions of that. So ultimately, the selectmen vote this,
Yeah,
but we have to give them a recommendation before they accept it.
right.
Okay, so the town is the grantee and the selectmen represent the town, so.
Right.
Yeah, okay, so, so we're giving them our opinion. Yeah, the Improvement Society, haven't talked to anybody specifically about it, but overall, they would be a very good steward of this.
Hi, guys.
Of this very important parcel, so.
So Glenn
Um,
Ascott is with us this evening. He is on the Improvement Society. He's on the
Hi,
board.
this is Glenn Aspaslay. I just thought I would come in and represent the Improvement Society in case any questions came up about the society or anything like that. So just let me know.
Thank you.
Hi, Glenn. Glenn, this is Jack Maven. Are any trails planned on this parcel?
We don't have any specific plans for that, but since we will be the stewards, there is an opportunity to mow a path or something like that, but
yeah,
we haven't really scoped it out to see if there's any big potential for that. I mean, obviously it's beautiful if you walk down there,
oh yeah,
kind of along the edge of the cemetery and down to the end. It's pretty, but it's not big enough to have like a substantial trail system or anything like that.
Does the Historic Society, or does the Improvement Society have resources the resources required to maintain that parcel? You know, meaning mowing of, you know, any open portions, to preserve it in its current natural condition?
Yeah, that's our intention to maintain it as it will be our only property that we hold. So this will be a new, well, not historically, the Improvement Society has held land in North Andover, but they don't anymore. So this will be a new thing for us, and we have the resources financially and volunteer wise to make sure this stays mowed and the stone walls stay cleared.
Yep, I guess I'll take you at your word on that, Glenn. Thank you. No more questions, Will.
All right, thank you. Joe?
I had the exact same questions, but to be brief, we're only transferring the conservation restriction, which means the heir to that restriction is in fact the restriction. And if that conveyance happens, the society is taking on all the obligations in that restriction. And I think I just heard that they're prepared to do that and capable to do that.
Well, to make sure it's clear that the conservation restriction itself is still going to be held by the town.
Yeah.
The only thing that's changing is the actual owner of the land, and since it's already protected and since it's just a field, really what falls to the Improvement Society is really maintaining it and taking ownership of that parcel as an open space, and that the town would still hold the restriction and be responsible for any sort of monitoring of that restriction.
So my question goes right to preventing, conflict in the future. The society is capable of carrying out all of those obligations under the restriction, at least in good faith at this point, correct?
Right, exactly.
I have no questions.
Thank you. Al?
Just following up on Joe's line of thought there. So the Improvement Society is a what? Is it a corporation, a trust? What legal entity is the Improvement Society?
I believe it's a corporation, and it's a nonprofit organization that's been around for over 100 years in various stages. Most recently, we've gained a lot of momentum around a new board that has kind of breathed life into an organization that was almost, didn't really know what to do with itself, and now we really found a lot of great new people, and we've been doing things like clearing stone walls and doing volunteer days just to kind of revive the original mission of beautifying the town. And this parcel that we'll be stewarding will be our first sort of parcel that we'll have ownership of and be taken care of in that capacity. Right now,
So I guess my question, I appreciate what the society's done. I understand who the society is in that respect, but what I'm saying is the society an entity that's legally able
It's
to hold title?
It's a 503c nonprofit organization.
503c not for profit.
Yep.
Okay. All right. Very good. Yep. I'm all set. Thank you.
Okay. I have questions, but most of them I'm going to keep to myself. The other, one question I have is, if Center Realty wants to turn over the land, why aren't they turning over the land to the town and the Conservation Commission?
Well, because we hold the CR, and that's going to be a conflict. So if we were to take the land, we'd have to find someone else to hold the conservation restriction. We can't hold our own restriction.
Well, why couldn't we redo it as open space like we do all the other properties that we have around the lake?
I don't know.
And that's been my question for years now, because going back many years ago, going back all the way to the Mazarenko Farm acquisition, when the town acquired property under open space, it was accepted by the town as open space, bought and paid for by the town as open space, and then managed by the town Conservation Commission and or Open Space Subcommittee, which is a subcommittee of this commission. Lately, over the past few years, I've seen many different transfers of property that go to different organizations like Greenbelt, like trustees, whatever, you name it. All good organizations. I'm not demeaning any of the organizations, but I'm asking the same question. When did we take this left-hand turn away from the town owning and managing and operating its own open space? When did we start needing help? I never saw this coming. And I asked the same question, and maybe that's not an appropriate question for this meeting, but it's my question nonetheless.
Yeah, well, I think it is a good question, because suppose we don't agree with it.
Well, if I could jump in, Lou, this is Jack. Typically if you're talking about the community preservation acquisitions, and I think those are most of the ones you're talking about, Al. The parcels were acquired by the town, and the town is the owner. But to Amy's point, we needed someone to hold the conservation restriction, and typically it's the trustees and Essex County Greenbelt, primarily the trustees of reservations.
But we hold our own restrictions on many other properties that were bought prior to that. Go all the way back to the Mazarenko purchase, and then come forward from there and look at all the different parcels that have been procured by the town, either under Chapter 61A or however they came to be, and it's only, I don't know, maybe it has been since the inception of the CPCC, because prior to that, when there was no CPCC, it was all voted at town meeting, the money was appropriated, and the purchase was made. Now the money is taxed, put into the CPCC fund, and then there's the committee that has discretionary authority on how to spend it. Is that's probably the junction in the road I'm talking about, right? That must be when it happened.
And that was right around Foster Farm, because Foster Farm was acquired before the community preservation.
If I could just chime in here a little bit. I'm not an expert on this by any means, but from what I understand, when a parcel is acquired with the conservation with the Community Preservation Act, it has to be protected in perpetuity, and that needs a conservation restriction.
Right.
If you look at something like Osgood Hill or Foster Farm, it's not actually protected. It's owned by the town, but it's not a protected. It's not protected by any sort of restrictions. Hence all the the things that go on with Osgood Hill. It's not actually protected at all. in that sense. So you really need an owner, which in the case of something like, you know, Carter Hill is the town, and then you need another party that holds the restriction. In the case of these Academy Road parcels, it's kind of the opposite. There's an owner, and then the town holds the restriction. I don't know the history behind that, but there is a distinction between these Chapter 61A parcels and something that has an actual conservation restriction on it.
So you don't think we're doing a good job on Osgood Hill?
No, I don't
Well,
think so.
you mentioned all the things that are going on there. The only thing that's going on there is we have a farmer that cuts the hay on it.
No, what I mean is the fact that it's not that it's not currently protected, and there have been efforts to protect it, but nothing's happened with that yet. And I mean, it's not in any danger of being developed, but it's not it's not a protected parcel right now.
Right.
I didn't mean to suggest that there's funny stuff going on.
No, but we protect it. It's protected by us.
Yes,
but there's no actual restriction, is what I'm saying.
Right.
Sounds like semantics to me, but.
Well, no, Glenn's right. There is no conservation restriction right now on the majority of the land on the Osgood Hill parcel. And actually, you know, the Stevens Estate committee that I was on last year, we made recommendations to the Board of Selectmen, and I know you guys know some of this, but one of the recommendations was to have, you know, the prospective tenant who's going to run the Stevens Estate also generate a conservation restriction for the largest parcel of open space where all the trails are now. So we're actually pursuing that right now. And again, you know, the land is owned by the town, so we would need someone to hold the conservation restriction. And I know trustees is, you know, they're typically someone we approach to, you know, as a candidate to do that. So anyway, we need both. I think we're all saying the same thing. We need both parts. We need someone to own it and someone to hold the conservation restriction. And you know, the role of the person that holds the entity that holds the conservation restriction is we monitor it, and if the terms of the conservation restriction are not being met, or it appears that, you know, things are moving, you know, against the restrictions guidelines, we petition the holder of the restriction to take action and you know, and remedy the situation.
I hear you talking. I just, I'm starting to question the necessity. If the town owns it and it's owned and dedicated as open space, why do we need somebody else to tell us what we're doing?
Because that type
that's
of
the law.
I'm in harmony with you, Al, but let's see what Sean has
Well, no,
to
just
say.
I'm not going to listen. Lou, I stated earlier I wanted the meeting to go quickly, so I'm going to shut my mouth now, and I'm going to wait. I'm going to wait for you to call the vote. Thank you for letting me run off. Thank you.
That's all right. Sean?
I think these are all great questions, and I'm interested in looking into it to see how the evolution of this took place. You know, I was just looking at a list of town-owned properties and those that are under the Conservation Commission's control, and a lot of them are CRs. Matter of fact, I think all of Half Mile Hill is under a CR. At least that's how it came into our possession.
Yeah, anything that was protected with CPA definitely has a CR on it.
Yeah. So yeah, I think this is. I don't think this is something we're going to get to the bottom of tonight, but I do think this is you know, one of those 40,000-foot questions that we should you know, get a better understanding of and come to a determination, whatever that's worth.
I agree. I agree.
Tony?
Tony? Tony?
Can we?
My understanding of the conservation restrictions benefit is that the property stays on the tax roll versus if the town was to take it, you generate no taxes. Even though we generate minimal taxes, there is still a tax on land held under conservation restriction. So I have no problem with
who pays the taxes on land that's under a CR?
The owner.
The fee owner.
Owner, given their tax benefit and their tax status. So it's probably minimal.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, I don't think it makes a huge difference, but just on paper it sounds better.
Yeah, Tony, we could have that conversation. Probably not on the public side, but we could have that conversation. We could talk about schools and churches too. So
this debate,
hopefully this COVID ends. It'd be nice to
tax revenue. It's really on protecting the environment.
Can we move on and zero back into this particular petition before us?
Well, that's what we are trying to do, Amy, because I'm not in favor of voting for the transfer. So that suggests what we're talking about.
No, but listen, so I want to make sure you guys understand what's happening. The conservation restriction is not going away. It's going to stay on this parcel, and we are going to remain the stewards. We're going to hold that CR. It's just there's going to be a new owner, and it's going to be the Improvement Society.
Well, I want to know why it isn't the town of North Andover.
Because we hold the CR.
We can't be. Amy's absolutely correct. We can't hold the restriction and own the property. It's either we own it and somebody else holds the restriction, or we hold the restriction and somebody else owns the property. Period.
Right.
Well, haven't we bought stuff through CPCC, whatever it's called, for?
As outright ownership, and we have.
Buy it. Who owns it? The town, right?
Then we have ownership.
And then the conservation restriction is under the authority of the Conservation Commission.
No, it's not.
If
you look at a place like Half Mile Hill or Carter Hill, the town doesn't hold the conservation restriction. That's where
a third
it can't be held by the owner.
The hen can't. I mean, the fox can't guard the hen house. That's the whole point. It's like the owner cannot guard itself, cannot hold a CR on itself and guard itself.
Exactly the premise. Exactly.
Right. So I think we should take this to a vote. I would
Lou, this is Joe. It comes down to the previous owner was obligated to perform certain things and restrict things. We were to oversee it and hold the restriction. The new owner, the person we're talking to now, is obligated to do the same thing. Are they capable?
Yes.
And are we confident that they're capable? If they are, and we agree, we should recommend the selectmen do this. It really, that's right down to that. Nothing more, nothing less.
Okay.
Lou, I would say just call the vote.
Okay. Need a motion to call a vote.
So Lou, I'm going to move to, if it's possible, can we continue this?
Sure.
Okay, so if we continue, what information do you need?
Well, I think a lot of us have questions on, at least I know I have a lot of questions on, why this process is occurring the way it is. I know I heard a couple of comments on the fox not overseeing the hen house, et cetera, but, nobody's looking at any regulations or bylaws or anything that are covering this. We're kind of all, sounds like we're shooting from the hip.
No, the conservation restriction governs how this is done.
This isn't. We're not really. I don't know why we're debating how conservation restrictions work. I'm a little confused here. Nothing is going to change with the conservation restriction. This is just a change in the ownership of the parcel.
So the current owner is the Center Realty Trust. They're gonna probably disband. So they're not going to be an entity anymore. So they're trying to find owners for their holdings. So Parcel A, they want to transfer to the Improvement Society. and that conservation restriction is just going to travel with that parcel. We're
Yep.
still going to hold it, and the Improvement Society will be obligated to operate under that conservation restriction, and we will be monitoring them.
And
So-
if we didn't vote to allow that to happen, then what would be the outcome?
I don't know, because we have Center Realty Trust that may not exist anymore. So then what? We don't have an owner.
The conservation restriction governs the parcel. The part of that restriction, the excerpt that you provided, Amy, was it does allow for transfer of ownership,
Yes.
and with permission by the grantee, which is us. They're just asking us to allow the transfer of ownership.
Exactly.
And whether we recommend that to the selectmen or not. And so that's the question they have to us.
So what,
And I recommend,
if we voted no, then it would go in front of the selectmen as a no vote by the Conservation Commission, which wouldn't really make any difference. They're gonna do what they want anyways.
but can I ask the commission a question? What is the value of keeping it in Center Realty Trust possession when we know that they're going to be disbanding?
That's not what we're after. What I want to know, and Al, and I think Sean, and probably maybe Joe, I think, want to know why this guy's giving the land away. Why aren't they giving it to the town?
They can't.
They can't, because
Yeah.
we hold the CR.
We can't hold both.
Yeah, I agree.
But we do. But I understand legally what's going on here. The only thing I said, I probably shouldn't have started this discussion. The only thing I said was we hold and manage parcels in this town that we've been holding and managing since the 80s and 90s that don't have CRs on them that are doing just fine. So apparently somewhere in the creation of the CPCC, the desire to put CRs on everything and now involve two people is what's been happening, and it has been happening. So I get it, but I get it. I don't agree with it, but I get it. But I'm not gonna hold up this thing. So Lou, I don't think any vote we take here is going to matter one way or the other. So we might as well just vote the transfer.
Okay.
So let me ask one last question.
So
let me ask one quick question though. Who owns the property that is Half Mile Hill then, if we hold the CR on it?
No, we
don't hold the CR.
There is no CR on Half Mile Hill.
No, there's a CR at Half Mile Hill.
Yes, there is. That was purchased by CPC.
It's owned by the town, and I believe the CR is held by Greenbelt.
By Greenbelt.
I'm sorry.
I agree. That's exactly the case.
Half Mile Hill has a CR held by a land trust called Essex County Greenbelt Organization.
I don't know if you're aware, but we actually manage that property. The Conservation Commission manages that property. We facilitate the hay being harvested off that property since it was purchased.
Yes,
it's owned by
the CR is held by Essex County Greenbelt. They held.
Okay.
Do you know what? Do you want?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
All right, Lou. All set.
Okay. All right. So we need a motion, and we have a second. I would say.
Second.
Do we have? Okay. All in favor of voting in favor of the transfer, say aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Nay.
Two nays.
Two nays.
Who's naying here?
The chairman, and I don't know who the second one is. Sean?
That's me, yes. Yep.
Okay. But the rest of you are in the affirmative, in favor.
I'm holding my nose and I'm voting affirmative.
You understand what this?
Only too well.
Okay.
I understand only too well. But you got the vote went through, so you're all set.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Thanks, Glenn.
He hung up, but
Thank
he
you.
didn't want to talk to us.
I'm
Thank you,
sorry.
Glenn.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right, thanks. The, I think
I'll
at
hang
some
up
point
now.
we should have a discussion about that.
We
Well,
should.
It's a discussion that we should not have at a public meeting. We should have it
Agreed.
as we should have the discussion as taxpayers and not commission members at a private gathering sometime. That's
Sure.
what we should do.
Sounds good to
in.
me.
So, invitation.
Okay.
All right, so we'll do that, and we'll all get to know Tony a little better on that night.
Yes. Looking forward to it.
Hey, you want it, Tony. You want it in. You're going to get it.
How you gonna get to see the dark side, Tony?
He's gonna have to take the oath.
He's already seen it.
Oh, Amy, you're not out. You'll be there too.
I know.
Yes. All right, so now we need a motion for signal authorization.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, and that's unanimous. And last but not least, motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Sorry,
All
Al.
those-
third, whatever. I don't care.
Fourth, fifth. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, and that's unanimous.